There we go.
Scott, how's it going, man?
Good, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Welcome to the first sequence practice.
I love it. We're live.
We're live, man. We're live. Yeah.
Love it. Doing it live.
Yeah.
Look, you guys coordinated your outfits, and then I'm the schmuck wearing a blue shirt.
Gray crew neck sweaters. That's all we got to wear next time, Max.
Yeah, it's like a Canada-US thing, isn't it?
It is, definitely. Definitely.
Like, okay.
How many of our attendees are from Canada right now? Put up your hand. Okay, we got 1, 2. Oh, we got some Canadians representing. Awesome.
Why doesn't everyone quickly jump into the chat feature below and introduce yourself, name, company, maybe title. That's all super, super helpful.
Mm-hmm. Good call, Scott. Well, we're going to wait a few more minutes, or just another minute or so, just get some more people on board before we get into our day. All right. Hi, Ash.
Jeff, do we want to kick off with any polls or anything while we're waiting?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me get this. Let's launch the poll. Okay, so everyone, while we're waiting, there is a poll that just launched. What is the average response rate to cold outreach emails?
This is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lead the witness and skew the results here by talking too much.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see where we land.
Mm-hmm. We'll get some responses. It's good.
Scotty, hey, Taylor Steele. I know Taylor. What's up, man? Thanks for joining us.
Danielle with the token Canadian A. All right.
Identifying without identifying.
Yeah. Well, that's all we say, eh?
That's what we think.
Definitely. Yeah.
I actually do say it way more than I ever thought, because now I get called out for it.
Yeah, totally.
It's a real thing.
I lived in Miami for a short bit and I got called out a lot.
I want to meet Miami Jeff. How was Miami, Jeff?
Miami was cool. Miami
Sounds
was
like
cool.
pre-kids Jeff, fun Jeff.
Miami was leisure suit guy, okay? Only linens, flip-flops all the time.
Yeah. Let's bring that guy back, dude. Let's bring back linen suit Jeff.
Yeah, hey, I do live somewhere just as hot as Miami, so why not, right?
All right, should we
Yeah, let's get her started. Thanks for submitting your poll. So we got everybody voted, and we have a third of the group that's correct. So the correct answer is actually 1% is the average response rate to a cold outreach email. Looking at Max's face, I think it's the overt cringe, right? It's true, actually. So according to polls, we're not really doing that well on our cold outreach. We're not getting a lot of responses, and we feel very strongly that we can do a lot better. So a decent positive response rate for cold outreach is about 9 to 13%. But what do you think, guys? Do you think we can do better?
No doubt. I want to know who these people that put 30%, 14% did 30%. Maybe we just have a bunch of weapons on the call. And just...
Yeah, no kidding. I want to hear from you guys. Awesome.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that's pretty standard to what we see, in the market is like, is this, and it's certainly scary. And I think as an industry, we can all collectively do better, but simultaneously it's harder than ever, in my opinion, to stand out, right? I don't know about everyone on this call, but certainly for me, I'm seeing about a 30% uptick in cold emails since COVID started. So my inbox is busier than ever.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are ramping up their outbound because things are slowing down, and maybe it's a little bit more repeatable and predictable when you get that engine going. Are you guys seeing the same?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I've seen just inbound, not just inbound emails, but also inbound LinkedIn, like in LinkedIn inbound social touches. I've seen ever since we kind of all hit quarantine, just suddenly people were just maximizing that. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen a huge uptick in mails, LinkedIn outreach. I don't know if this is true for you guys too, but tons of franchise ownership opportunities headed my way. Never thought of it, never dreamed of it, never entertained it.
Yeah.
They fall in the 99% that don't get a response for me. And then what else? Yeah,
Yeah, 18 dominoes by the end of this. Not Max, the Domino's king.
I'm a chicken. I'm from Atlanta, Chick-fil-A. But no, yeah, franchise ownership opportunities and financial planning and wealth management. Just with the volatility of all the markets, I feel like it's a unique opportunity for those folks.
Nice. Yeah. Well, no, right on, guys. Well, let me introduce sequence practice. So, welcome everybody to the call on your first ever sequence practice. This is part of the Sales Sequence Bootcamp series. There's going to be more events in the future on this topic, so just watch out for your inbox and on social to find out what those are. So, what sequence practice is? It's a bi-weekly event where you can come here. We gather experts from, Salesforce like Max, Outreach like Scott, and a whole bunch more to come and give their expert advice on your sequences. And with the goal here is to make sure that everybody gets better than that 1% response rate. We want the entire market to get better response rates by producing better quality emails, phone, social touches, and overall sequences. So we are lucky enough today to actually be able to go through 3 submissions that we chose from the pile of applications. Thank you to the 3 who's submitting. You're going to find out in 3 seconds who you are. But when your name is called, what I'd like you to do, or when we're covering your stuff, I'd like you to introduce yourself, what type of asset you're reviewing, and kind of like and what you've achieved so far. So like what kind of results you have gotten from this particular email or sequence or call, whatever. And then our playmakers, these handsome gentlemen here, are going to review your emails. Sorry, Max.
You know what would be really, really cool? Because I've seen 1 and 2 of them will be like unfiltered, ungated advice, me seeing it for the first time. Max and I have a perspective. We've both done a lot of outbound in our careers. I built an outbound program before, but we're just 2 opinions. So I think it'd be really fun as well as we go through, like Bilal, I see Galem, sorry. We have some great experts with us. So I would love to hear your feedback too, because we're just 2 opinions. So it's really supposed to be kind of a workshop, and we're all in this together, and hopefully we can come up with some great stuff for everyone.
For sure. No, thanks, Scott. So the first person we're going to call to the stage here is Jeff Barkin. He's our first submitter, and I'm going to share his work. So Jeff, let me just make sure. Let me give you the mic, Jeff. So Jeff, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us, and thanks for submitting to the first ever sequence practice, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Excited to be here.
Mm-hmm.
So just to give you a rundown, I am doing essentially digital transformation consulting, specifically for the real estate industry, with an angle on bringing technology into real estate companies, having worked in property management for a few years and having brought in a lot of technology to help operate more efficiently. And now, I'm trying to help other companies do the same thing, because I really believe they can benefit a lot from that. And so the sales asset I'm presenting is an email. It was designed after some feedback from people I know that are of, let's say, the older generation who don't know what technology is, and were concerned with another version of an email that, explained what I do, with this focus on the technology. And they basically said that will probably make their head explode. So they're like, write an email that doesn't talk about technology, but talks about what you do. So I was like, okay, we'll just talk about business processes and problem solving and saving money. So they can actually know what I'm talking about. Right. And so the end product is this, where, we focus on some very simplistic language that, they can read quickly. We want to make it I want to make it short because people don't like to read things. You can see, other than like the end part where you're referring to my website, it's only 5 lines. And one of them is a link to a blog post so they can get a little bit more content, because I believe in, content marketing and just having a bit of additional information beyond just the email that, if they want to see more, there's a quick link to that to sort of try to get them to be a bit more engaged. And this is all about selling for myself. I'm not selling on behalf of anybody else. And we're targeting a typical real estate executive who might own commercial or mixed use or residential properties, who might be using Excel and paper for all of their business processes and is frustrated with the slowness, is struggling with the work from home thing that we're dealing with right now, or is just spending too much money moving, shuffling paper around. And so, my goal is to tell them what I can do, try to establish some credibility, because that can be hard. So I tell them I used to manage $50 million of real estate, which is actually the case. And, that I can help them be a little bit more efficient, save a bit of money. And, hopefully they read the blog post and contact me, and then we would go from there.
So Jeff, what kind of response have you got from this so far?
I've only sent it out a couple times. I've sent it to some family members and friends to send out to their network on my behalf. So, I don't have a big bank of history. I've gotten a couple of responses. I definitely couldn't give you any kind of percentage. Yep. My networking is typically a little more selective. So like my main clients were people that I already knew, previous employers and suppliers. Right. And, I'm a little more selective. I don't do any kind of high volume email marketing, at least not yet. Yeah. But, it's really just like the feedback I've gotten on the content is that this is much easier to understand. And, we'll see how it goes in the future with, whether it's going to deliver any kind of results, sending it out on like a random basis where this is like the first point of contact, but most likely it's going to get sent out through other people who already know somebody. So like the open rate will be 100% because, right. They're getting it from like, my mother or my friend or just another business associate who already knows them, who's sending them like, here's somebody I know who does this, take a look at, and, contact them if you want to. So the open rate will be quite high. Yeah. I might not see that, but, not because the email is so great, but because it's being sent for somebody with, credibility to them. And then, hopefully they call me. And,
so in that case, then we're going to say that we haven't had any real cold response yet. And so
no, definitely not.
So now, Jeff, what we're going to do is get the panel to review it, and we're going to put you back on in the attendee. And without further ado, let's who wants to kick it off, guys? Max or Scott?
I'll dive in quickly because something, and Jeff, thank you so much for sharing, being the first brave one to go up. Something I found super interesting, and I have a ton of more tactical feedback, but there's kind of this line here where it goes, I can develop a plan studying subjects such as your software applications and staff training to identify knowledge and feature gaps so you can spend less time, blah, blah, blah. And that's very business language. The funny thing I noticed when Jeff was telling me that, he actually gave up some better copy that would probably work better. He said, a lot of them might be using old school Excel, having trouble working from home, tired of shuffling papers around. So if you actually took that language and replaced some of the business language with more crispy, relevant, easy to understand language, mm-hmm. I bet responses would go up. And then a few other things, I think he got some great advice from people. Keep it simple, have simple language, and keep it short. I would continue following that thread make this even shorter, keep the language simpler, and you got to watch. Bilal kind of said it. You got to watch out for who's the hero of this story. There's a lot of I language. There's a lot of me language. Check out my blog. Give you more details on how I do this. You need to flip that and make them the hero. And there's a bunch of other stuff, but I'll shut up and let Max jump in too.
Yeah, no, I agree with Scott Bilal. I mean, you 100% called out a bit of initial feedback that I had about setting up the buyer as the hero of the story, of the narrative. Something I can empathize with, Jeff, is like selling to a demographic of people that are very much so, let's call them like laggards from a technology standpoint. I sell into the small business segment at Salesforce currently. Oftentimes companies that are just getting started, fewer than 20 total employees, migrating off of Excel out of their inbox into CRM for the first time and being exposed to Salesforce of all things. So like, my God, can I overwhelm people quickly? Yeah. And I was really good at it in a bad way with horrible outcomes at the beginning of my time at Salesforce. I would throw a bunch of technical jargon in there. And like the response rates that I was getting were awful, abysmal. I mean, probably less than 1%. So
you didn't get the wow, you're smart, Max?
Yeah, no. And honestly, being the smartest guy in the room is never a good thing. So I would just echo a lot of what Scott said. Boil things down, put it in simple terms that you imagine them kind of thinking to themselves. I think some of the best advice I've gotten is to put things in your customer's language, use their terminology wherever possible. So what you were saying, Jeff, like, and what Scott alluded to, being the kind of advice around reframing the way that you frame up the value prop, and just speaking in terms of outcomes. That's another piece that I think I'd iterate on what Scott said to add is we want to speak to our customers in terms of the value proposition that we stand to offer, not necessarily the means or the mechanism by which we're going to kind of offer them to get to that endpoint.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And like a perfect example with this is like the subject line. If we just look at the subject line, how you could make it more outcome based and more frame it in their language more. Instead of saying specialist in business process efficiency and digital transformation, try something that you actually served up. Say, tired of shuffling papers around and getting lost in Excel.
Yeah.
Question. That is, they're going to be like, yeah, fuck yeah. I am tired of that. That's really annoying. And you're illuminating Josh Braun would call this an illumination question. You're shining a light on a problem that they might not know they have, but can relate with. So there's just an example of how to do that. I think Bilal has a great point of calling that out, right? Like in the actual copy is saying, he said, ever felt your head is spinning hearing about tech? It can be frustratingly confusing. Calling that out is really going to resonate with them. And if they see you as the person who can stop their head from spinning in tech, they're going to want to have the conversation.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say here too is, I was always taught, like you just have one call to action. Right now we have, hey, visit my website, check out my blog posts. So I would just have one of those, only ever have one link and only one call to action. And a few people are saying should be a lot shorter. I agree.
Yeah.
I think you have maybe 2-3 sentences max on a first touch cold email like this to kind of get your foot in the door.
And I'd like to add too is make sure if you're doing 2 to 3 sentences max, don't make them super long sentences just so you can go within that 3-sentence structure. We still need to care about grammar and sentence structure so that we're not coming across as unprofessional or not competent with the work that we do.
Yeah, and you kind of called it out with this arrow here, but I'll just do it again. We don't need to say visit my website. We all know how the World Wide Web works now. They'll be able to find you. It's in your signature. you know, they know how to find you if you've piqued their interest enough. So I think it's a wasted sentence.
And on that note, Scott, good point, is on that note, when you're looking at an email, actually Max said this yesterday, it was basically you're trying to tell pieces of a story in each email. So if you really want to make a really effective email, you want to tell one story, one value prop, have one call to action, and make it really simple so that they can walk away from your email with understanding the one thing you want them to remember. Google uses the see, think, and do idea. Just really think about that when you're looking at your emails. What do you want them to see? What do you want them to think? And what do you want them to do? And it's so much easier if you're doing one thing than multiple things all at once.
Yeah, I mean, executives especially, and Jeff, like, it sounds like you have a fairly extensive background in the industry, and like, you know, a lot to kind of prop up your credibility.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say, think about when you were that person, when you were that executive, how you might have consumed information like this when it reaches your inbox. When I read an email, I'm skimming everything, because like I told Jeff, and I was joking on the front end of this call, my calendar today looks like the Rainbow Road level of Mario Kart from when I had an N64 when I was a child. It's just like back to back to back to back to back meetings. Time is our most like precious commodity and like limited resource. So when I read an email, the first thing I do is I'm jumping to the end of what I would consider to be your premise, right? So every email in terms of its framework has a premise, a body, and then a call to action, right? Typically, it's not always framed up that way, but it's the way that I write my emails or structure my emails. The first thing I'm doing is jumping to the end of your premise to see why you've selected me as a recipient of this email. Like, why is it me that you're reaching out to? Why is this relevant to me? And then I'm going to navigate to the call to action and see what that looks like. What are you asking for from me or of me? And if everything there still captures my interest, then I'm going to swoop around to the body of your email, which is where you've established all of your credibility here. So I might not ever even get to that if I don't kind of feel like your premise and your call to action resonate with me.
Yeah. And that was actually based on a study, I believe, I can't remember who did it, but tracking eye movements over thousands and thousands of people is where your eyes actually go when you're reading an email. Yeah, great point. Last thing I'll say specifically for this, because I can kind of put myself in the shoes of your buyer who's in real estate, you know, not overly technically savvy. They have a fear right now, in my opinion, or many of them do, of being disrupted, right? And so you can really hone in on that fear and kind of place those seeds of doubt in them to get them to, because you're kind of fighting the status quo. They've done stuff, it works for them, nothing's broken, so you need to paint a picture of a future where they're going to get left behind. And so asking illumination questions like, you know, what are you doing to make sure, you know, you don't get left behind in the real estate industry, or things like that, I think will drive them to take action. Sometimes fear, you know, fear of loss is a better driver than thinking you're going to gain something.
Yeah, 100%. No, thanks, guys. So we're going to move on to the next one. But before we do, we're going to do what is the one thing that Jeff can do to make this a better email? So summarize everything that we talked about. What would you guys say is the most important thing?
I'll let you go first, Scott. And I'll pivot off of that because I'm sure that you're going to take something I would have said.
So yeah, I think tons of people have said it. Shorter, for sure. To me, this looks like a lot of the emails I get, right? Yeah. So make it shorter, make them the hero of the story. Stay away, as I know you are doing digital transformation for real estate agents, but stay away from those buzzwords and jargon and talk to what you're actually helping them do, which is, you know, get out of Excel and stop shuffling around papers and, you know, get some time back in your day. And and that sort of stuff. So that would be, I snuck a few things in there, but those are a couple.
Awesome. Yeah, I like honestly what I heard was the I versus you. Really make them the star. They're the hero. You're solving their problems, not yours. And that's really the big thing for me. I should add actually though, we talked about this before, Max and Scott, is that this is multiple stories in one email. This is why sequences were created, because you can turn this one email that's what some prospects would call a terrifying email and turn it into multiple short emails with their own premise and their story and their call to action.
Yeah, and I would just say, I would, with Jeff's advice and Scott's advice, I would warm this up a little bit more. I'm okay with opening with a question, but I think if you do so, it should be something along the lines of what Scott shared. It might be, hey, provided everything that's going on, or provided the circumstances, surrounding COVID, companies in your industry have lost an average, on average 30% in productivity. Like, were you aware of that? Or, just framing it up a little bit differently with the syntax potentially. But if you don't do that, if I'm reading this, I want to know why it's reached my inbox. I don't see anything about this that screams to me, this email was kind of purpose built for me.
Mm-hmm. Right on, guys. Yeah, thanks for the advice. And Jeff, I hope I learned a lot from that. We're going to move on now to Cierra. So where are you, Cierra? Giving you the mic. Do you want to introduce yourself and what you submitted today?
Hi. Yes, can you hear me?
You can.
Yeah.
Hi, Cierra.
Yes. So my name is Cierra Bedelyon. I'm a business development rep with a company called Career Lines, and we sell outplacement services. And for those of you who don't know what outplacement is, it's to help with layoffs, mergers, acquisitions, and help the employees that are affected by it transition into new roles in different companies.
Cool.
Awesome.
So, let me go ahead.
Yeah. So tell us about this one here.
Yeah. So, I know that I think it was Scott mentioned at the beginning, you found that your open rates have significantly increased since COVID by like 30 some percent. I too have found that as well. And what I'm finding works is a lot of personalization. Now, I know we touched on the last presentation of how being brief and short, but when you're selling into HR, which is what I do, they are people, they're people persons. They love to talk. So they're relatable. So for me, what's working is personalization. In this particular email, I did my research. I showed them, hey, I looked up something that I could tie to what's happening in your company. And I opened with that. So calling out that I know that they had one of their biggest acquisitions in history. And I wanted to tell them, that's something we can help with. Mm-hmm. This particular person actually engaged in some content from one of our webinars. So I knew, okay, someone at this company is interested. I'm going to use the tactic of congratulating them on something they've recently achieved for the company. I actually made this a sequence to target other companies as well. And in this one, I wanted to let them know a huge client that we've worked with through mergers and acquisitions. Stars Entertainment, something very recognizable by a lot of people. So I chose that to kind of lead with in my opening. And again, I wanted to tie it to, I know that you engaged in some content. Doesn't mean that they were going to necessarily do furloughs or layoffs, yep. But something sparked their interest, so I wanted to call that out as well. And again, I didn't know their business situation, so that's kind of where my closing came in. I just wanted to kind of introduce them to Career Minds and our outplacement service and how we're different than most of our competitors, and ask them for 5 or 10 minutes of their time just to have that introduction. And again, closing, human resources says the company is made up of its people, and that's what makes a company successful. So I wanted to call them out too, that human resources are heroes of companies because they're the ones seeking and managing that talent to make the company successful. So that's where my closing came in.
Right on. And well, thanks for that, Cierra. And what about the response rate on this one? So what is your typical response rate on this particular email?
On this particular email, I'm getting a 17.9% response rate, which is not bad. I just started this sequence probably about 2.5 weeks ago.
Okay.
And what I'm doing is at the beginning, changing it to something I'm finding on the company. It could have been that they were recognized in the healthcare industry as one of the top 20 hospitals in the country. So that's where I would change that part, and keeping the we've helped people through mergers and acquisitions with Stars Entertainment, etc. So my response rate, is about 17.9. My open rate is actually 84%. So I targeted 4 people within HR, not knowing who manages it. Typically, I like to go after CHROs or VPs because at the end of the day, they're signing off on outplacement.
Yeah.
They may not be managing it directly. So sometimes you have to go after a few people in the company. And my open rate is 84%, which is extremely high because on average, an open rate for some of my sequences and maybe.
So what for 84% open rate, what's your subject line? Because we didn't see that in your submission.
Yep, my subject line was literally "Congrats on your UVU acquisition," and then again, like when I change it, "Congrats on being recognized by Forbes," and I always put their name in the title as well of the subject line. So I said in this one, Heidi - congrats on your UVU acquisition with an exclamation.
Cool. Oh, thanks, Cierra. So I'll pass it off to the panel now. So give me one sec. There we go. All right, guys, have at her.
I love it. First off, it's a strong email, and thank you for the submission. And doing this kind of one-to-one personalization, each and every one is definitely going to be effective. Sometimes you need a mix of this hyper personalization and a little more automation. A few things that stand out to me. Again, it is quite long. Still, I do like the PS. Humanizing yourself a little bit. That's awesome. I would push up the fact that they've engaged in content as like the very first thing. So I would say, hey, I saw you recently engaged with this content that we shared around furloughs and layoffs. But more importantly, I stumbled upon this article that Dana acquired OVO, which is big news, and then bang, go into it. I would put that front and center. That's a big thing. That's some pretty heavy intent if they're engaging with your content. So put that front and center. Don't bury it in the second email. When I look at your fluffy your CTA at the bottom, and I'm going to try and demonstrate this. If Max says sends me, we're talking, right? And then at the end he says, we should get a beer sometime this week or next. I don't actually believe Max and I are going to get a beer sometime in the next week or next. I think that's a throwaway sentence that he's just like, kind of being nice. But if Max says at the end, hey, dude, this has been awesome. Let's grab a beer next Wednesday at 7 p.m. I'm going to be like, oh, that's definitely happening. Okay, let's do that. So that's trying to highlight the difference between more kind of assertive language when you're asking for something. So are you free sometime this week or next? Change that to be more direct. And then one more thing. Oh, Bilal, who I think we're going to have as one of the guests next time that we do this, because he's got some great points and is very much in line with some of the things that I'm thinking is. So we talked about last time about making the prospect the hero in the story. there's also this really powerful thing that you can do when you make a common enemy together. So think about who the common enemy is that you're fighting. Is it the status quo? Is it people getting furloughed and then talking bad about your company? Whatever the enemy is, try and create that, because then you're automatically on the same team, and can be a good way to highlight a point. David Premier has great content on this. Great point, Bilal.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And Scott, what you said is what my initial response to this was. One, it does appear to be a bit longer than I'd prefer it is. I would 100%. The second paragraph is captivating to me, at least like in terms of the strategy that you've employed here. So the highest trigger strategy or like response rates are to self-authored content, things that they've engaged with, self-attributed traits, if you can find those, right? People call them out on their LinkedIn profiles. Some people have wacky titles. Some people have weird headlines. Like I think Phil Libin, for the CEO of Evernote, who recently launched another company and product, says, I do stuff, or I break things. So it's just a unique opportunity for you to engage with them. And it's traits that they've attributed to themselves. So it's things that they clearly feel passionate about. In this case, engaged content, it's a huge trigger for them to respond with. So like Scott said, I'd bump that up to the top of this email. And the last sentence of your opening paragraph, we've helped clients such as Stars through their mergers and acquisitions. I think it's interesting. I might drop that down lower in the email and specifically speak to outcomes that you help them achieve by way of helping them. So like, what did you do to help these people? Or what outcomes did you help them realize by being involved with that process and supporting them throughout? But I think I might open, honestly, with your third paragraph. You're calling out, to Scott's point and what Bilal was saying, the importance, like what outcome do we want to achieve? We want our employees to feel valued. We want them to feel supported. And as a business with a brand that we need to maintain, we want to make sure that we're avoiding slander and like mudslinging on our name. Like Scott was saying, creating an enemy out of a negative outcome and an adverse effect of people speaking poorly about your brand from an employee experience that they've had. So just a few thoughts. I agree again with Scott too. Being specific with a proposed time quickly helps them rule that time in or out as an option. They can take a look at 3:30 on Wednesday next week and say, nope, it doesn't work for me, and propose a new time. So I definitely agree with it.
Yeah. Oh, great stuff, guys. So if we're to say one thing, again, we're going to go back to one thing, how to improve this particular message. What would be the one thing, guys? I'll start with Max first.
Yeah, I hate to say, abbreviate, but condense this is the biggest piece. I think Josh Braun is consistently points out like a 65 letter or character email is like 10 times more likely to receive a response. We need to talk in sentences here as opposed to paragraphs.
Right on. Scott, what do you say?
I'll just reiterate. I think the thing that would move the needle the most is bringing up that the fact that they engaged in content in the very first line. Don't lose the fact that you recently read the article that acquired Ovo. That's a really important piece. Don't just hang your hat on the fact they engaged with content, but I would push that up.
Good points, guys. Thank you. All right. Well, there's the next one from Cierra is actually, it looks like a little bit of a cold call 2.0 style, asking for referral through the phone. So this is our first phone call to review. I'm going to leave it to you. So what do you think of this phone call, Scott?
Hi, this is Cierra Bedelyon calling from Cierra. So someone connect with the individual response manager contest. Yeah, I think cold calls upfront contracts are awesome. So, hey, this is Cierra, Bedelyon calling from Career Minds. You know, I'm calling about career outplacement processes. Do you have 30 seconds for me to give you my best like dog and pony show? That's what Beck does. That's what the team at Chorus does. They have unbelievable results doing it. The upfront contract is awesome, but it's not a bad opener in my opinion.
Cool.
Yeah, I think, and maybe it's something consistent that I saw it in your previous email, but you are almost calling out your reason for outreach in the second paragraph in your previous email, the third paragraph. And I think just bumping that up, bringing it higher in the email, and like introducing the premise sooner would be incredibly helpful. But the reason why you reached out is that you noticed on their website, motto states this. It's a lower, it has a lower likelihood to trigger a response, being that it's like company related information and not specific to the person that you're speaking with. So I think if you can reach into even a junk drawer to see, where did this person go to school? Have they identified any personal hobbies or interests? Have they, like I said earlier, do they have self-attributed traits that I can pull from to try to trigger a response? Have they engaged with any content? Have they published any content or posted anything, liked anything, commented on anything? I think it's powerful. I think I would just take that second paragraph and move the premise higher in this email or call.
Right on. And then
the reason for my call is always a very powerful thing. People want to know that right away.
Right. And I like what you said there, Scott, about asking permission. Can I give you my pitch for 30 seconds? Can I talk to you about what I called you for? Right. Asking permission, because you're calling them out of the blue. Right. And people like to feel like they're in control. Right.
That's an old Sandler one, upfront call.
Yeah. So here's the companion email here.
Really good. I love the second paragraph.
What's that?
The second paragraph in this is so good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a way of it's not just personalized, it's like relevant, right? I think that's what makes the second paragraph so effective.
Yeah.
It's not just the fact that she shows she's done her homework and this email is personalized. The personalization is also relevant to the product and service that she's offering, right? Good banks help protect your money. Great banks help protect you. It is clear that you as a company care about the people who support it. Therefore, I am sure you care about protecting those that work for you as well. That's the double whammy of personalization and relevance.
I think to like go off of this further, I should have said it in your last email. I was in IT staffing and professional services for 3 years before coming to Salesforce. So I placed IT professionals with Fortune 50 companies in the greater Atlanta area, Coke, Delta, Home Depot, a host of others. And so I'm kind of semi-familiar with the space. We helped when Coca-Cola started laying employees off in 2016, 2017, huge layoffs, a couple thousand people. I think to Scott's point, taking credit for some of the work that you've done and doing research would be really powerful here. If you're reaching out to a leader to say, hey, I've spoken with a few people, they were unaware of how they would be supported in the event that you guys had a layoff. Or I'd love to share with you some of what I've learned in speaking with a few of your employees around what their ideas might be or what their input might be on how they'd like to be supported in the event of an occasion like this or an event like this. People are really interested to know that. And I feel like the feedback loop is so broken in these big companies that, it's just that information isn't making its way to the top. And you might be the conduit or the vehicle for that information arriving at the doorstep of someone who can really effect change.
Right.
Love that.
Right.
Jeff, can we bring Cierra back up?
Yeah.
See her side of things. I'd love to get her perspective.
Yeah, just one sec. There we go. Cierra, you're back.
Yep, I think so.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. my power actually cut out in the middle of when you guys were reviewing. So I was like, can they hear me now? I don't know. Anyways, thank you guys very much for the feedback. I really appreciate it. Definitely even feedback from my team. I've been recognized for my my sequencing and talk track and is shortening, but I have great personalization. So that's definitely something that I need to work on, keeping my personalization and research effective, but shorter. So I really agree with you guys there. So that's a great takeaway for me as well. And then the call, Scott, you mentioned asking initially for 30 seconds of their time. I really like that as well. I have actually the past couple weeks, me and another teammate have been kind of bouncing ideas off of each other. And that was one that had been working for him. So that's something that I had been wanting to try with my talk track. So I really like that actually. Great.
I've had success with throwing out like just an odd number. So instead of saying like 30 seconds, just say, hey, can I give you the rundown in like 54.2 seconds? I'll make sure I keep it under that. And sometimes it's kind of pattern disruptor, and sometimes they do a little check on like, okay, sure, but I'm keeping you to 54.2.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. So I appreciate that feedback too. And with the call too, I think Max, you had mentioned just kind of putting something personalized there, but moving up to, getting to the point of why I'm calling, like, hey, I'm calling about outplacement. So definitely something to take away from that too for the call. And once I think the idea behind it for what I thought when using this talk track was, I'm not always sure who's going to be managing the outplacement process. So I want to weed out anyone that probably is not involved and try to get that referral right away. And make sure I'm really targeting the right individual in a personalized manner. So.
Yeah, Cierra, I mean, it's really good, to be honest. And Scott, I love Scott's upfront contract. Salesforce is huge on the Sandler sales methodology. It's like beaten into everyone upon arrival. But like the upfront contract, I think could be made even stronger if you were to add on or tack on to what Scott said. Look, I promise to give you all the time back that I would have taken if you're not interested or you happen to be the wrong person for me to be discussing this with.
Yeah.
And that kind of just lets their guard down. It'll increase the probability that they say, hey, you know what? I'm not the right person, but it's a meaningful impact that you're trying to have. It's a positive impact on the organization and you intend to do well. So let me just go ahead and serve up someone that would be more appropriate for you to speak with.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And also, because you can't see the subject line here, I just literally gave the name, my name dropped. David Norton's office referred me to you. I think being able to have somebody to call out really gets them to actually open the email, which so far anyone that I've put in the subject line that has referred me has opened the email. I've only had one person not actually open it this week, which I was surprised, and hopefully she's just getting to it sometime.
Yeah, so Cierra, like knowing that, it makes it even a stronger case then to just drop that. Like, I'm a big fan of getting rid of niceties and like pleasantry. So like the hope your week is ending well. Like I never do that anymore. I used to. I get that. But if you're using that as your subject line, David Norton's office referred me to you, then you don't need to restate it with the the opening line, and it'll allow you to cut that out and move up the kind of personalized premise a lot easier.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a great point too. I guess I really didn't think about that. I don't need to repeat it, but I'll take that down too.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Love it.
All right, folks. So we're just over time now, so we're not going to be able to get to our third review. But what if you guys had to kind of sum up our call today? Cierra and Jeff for submitting. But if you guys had to sum up our call today, what would you think is the biggest takeaway?
Max, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I mean, condensing emails, just being more concise and brief, and quickly getting to the premise. If somebody walked up to you at cocktail hour and it wasn't, I know this is COVID, so sorry to twist the knife in everyone's back that you
Virtual
can't
cocktail hour.
see your friends anymore. I'm longing for human interaction here, but no, but I would just say this, like if you walked up to somebody at a bar and you said, hey, it's, hope you're doing well, or, just, it's not the way that you communicate naturally. So communicate naturally as you would if you were just chatting with someone casually, condense the message and get to the point. People want to know why you're talking to them, why you're reaching out.
Awesome. Good point, Max.
Yeah, I would second everything that Max says there. Other things I would say is, get rid of buzzwords as much as we can. Use, go and interview some of your customers or prospects and use the exact language that they use, and you're going to see a big uptick. And we talked about this a little bit, but pattern interruption is huge. So kind of going back to what Max said of, hope your week is going well, that reinforces a pattern because most sales emails start with that. So do the opposite of what most things are doing. Pattern interruption is so important in cold email. So that would be my 2 cents there.
It's funny, Scott, you talk about pattern interruption, and it's so funny in so many things. I remember my first job, I was selling cars at a car lot. And I was merchandising all the cars the same way. And the guy tells me, no, merchandise this one this way. I'm like, that looks ugly. Why would I want to do that? Because we're the first car lot in the park. People are going to see that and they're going to stop and they're going to come see us. And it worked. So it worked then in cars. This is so long ago. I'm not even going to tell you when. It works today now in cold email. Great point, Scott.
Jeff, thank you so much for putting this together. And everyone, great points. Everyone really, really added to the conversation, which was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot. Looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, thanks for joining, guys. Really appreciate it.
Likewise.
Bye, everyone.
See ya. Have a good week.